A clash of cultures in the New World. Our story today is a sad one. It is the history of a clash of peoples, religions, ideas, and cultures. It's a story of strongly held ideas and a lack of compromise. It is the story of the relation between European and the native who had lived for thousands of years in the area we now call North America. Many different Native American groups live, live on the east coast of what would become the United States. They spoke many different languages. Some were farmers, some were hunters, some found many wars, others were peaceful. These groups are called tribes. Their names are known to most America: the Seneca, Mohawk, the Seminole, the Cherokee, to name only a few. These tribes had developed their own culture many years before the first European settler arrived. Each had a kind of religion, a strong spiritual belief. Many tribes share a similar one. The Indians on the East Coast share a highly developed system of trade. Researchers say different tribes of Native Americans trade goods all across the country. The first recorded meetings between European and the natives of the East Coast took place in the 1500s. Fishermen from France and the Basque area of Spain crossed the Atlantic Ocean. They searched for whales along the east coast of North America. They make temporary camp along the coast. They often trade with local Indians. The Europeans often pay Indians to work for them. Both groups found this to be a successful relationship. Several times different groups of fishermen tried to establish a permanent settlement on the coast, but the severe winter made it impossible. These fishing camps were only temporary. The first permanent settler in New England began arriving in 1620. They wanted to live in peace with the Indians. They needed to trade with them for food. The settlers also knew that a bitter would result in their own a quick defeat because they were so few in number. Yet, problems began almost immediately. Perhaps the most serious was the different way the American Indian and the European talk about land. This difference had created problems that would not be solved during the next several hundred years. Land was extremely important to the European settler. In England and most other countries, land means wealth. Owning large amounts of land means a person have great wealth and political power. Many of the settlers in this new country could never have owned land in Europe. They were too poor, and they belonged to minority religious group. When they arrived in the new country, they discovered no one seemed to own the huge amount of land. Companies in England needed to find people willing to settle in the new country, so they offered land to anyone who would take the chance of crossing the Atlantic Ocean. For many, it was a dream come true. It was a way to improve their life. The land gave them a chance to become wealthy and powerful. American Indians believed no person could own land. They believed, however, that anyone could use it. Anyone who wanted to live on and grow crops on a piece of land was able to do so. The American Indian live within nature. They live very well without working very hard. They were able to do this because they understood the land and their environment. They did not try to change the land. They might farm in an area for years, then they would move on. They permitted the land on which they have farmed to become wild again. They might hunt on one area of land for some time, but again they would move on. They hunted only what they could eat, so the number of animals continued to increase. The Indian understood nature and made it work for them. The first European to settle in New England in the northeastern part of America were few in number. They wanted land. The Indian did not fear them. There was enough land for everyone to use and plant crops. It was easy to live together. The Indians helped the settler by teaching them how to plant crops and survive on the land. But the Indian did not understand that the settlers were going to keep the land. This idea was foreign to the Indian. It was likely to trying to own the air or the clouds. As the year passed, more and more settlers arrived and took more and more land. They cut down trees, they built fences to keep people and animals out. They demand that the Indians stay off their land. Religion was another problem between the settler and the Indian. The settlers in New England were very serious about their Christian religion. They thought it was the one true faith and all people should believe in it. They soon learned that the Indians were not interested in learning about it or changing their belief. Many settlers came to believe that Native Americans could not be trusted because they were not Christian. The settler group began to fear the Indian. They thought of the Indian as a people who were evil because they had no religion. The settler told the Indian they must change and become Christians. The Indian did not understand why they should change anything. The European settlers failed to understand that the Native Americans were extremely religious people with a strong belief in unseen powers. The Indian lived very close to nature. They believed that all things in the universe depend on each other. All native tribes had ceremony that honor a creator of nature. American Indians recognize the work of the creator of the world in their everyday. Other events also led to serious problems between the Native American and the settler. One serious problem was disease. The settler brought sickness with them from Europe. For example, the disease smallpox was well known in Europe. Some people carried the bacteria that caused smallpox, although they did not suffer the sickness itself. Smallpox was unknown to Native Americans. Their body defense system could not fight against the smallpox. It killed whole tribes. And smallpox was only one such disease. There were many others. The first meetings between settlers and Native Americans were the same in almost every European settlement on the east coast of America. The two groups met as friends. They would begin by trading for food and other goods. In time, however, sometimes would happen to cause a crisis. Perhaps a settler would demand that an Indian stay off the settler land. Perhaps a settler or Indian was killed. Fear would replace friendship. One side or the other would have what they believed was an attack. A good example of this is the violent clash called King Philip's War. Matacon was a leader of Wampanoag tribes that lived in the northernmost colony. He was known to the English as King Philip. Without the help of his tribe, the first European settler in that area might not have survived their first winter. The Wampanoag Indian provided them with food. They taught the settler how to plant corn and other food crops. The two groups were very friendly for several years. As the year passed, however, fear and a lack of understanding increased. Matacon brother died of a European disease. Matacon blamed the settler. He also saw how the increasing number of settlers were changing the land. He believed they were destroying it. One small crisis after another led to the king of a Christian Indian who lived with the settler. The settler answered this by killing 3 Indians. A war quickly followed. It began in 1675 and continued for almost 2 years. It was an extremely cruel war. Men, women, and children on both sides were killed. Researchers believe more than 600 settlers were killed. They also say as many as 3,000 of Native Americans died in the violence. History experts say the tribe of Indians called the Narragansett were a true victim of the King Philip War, and Narragansett were not involved in the war. They did not support one group or the other. However, the settlers killed almost all the Narragansett Indians because they had learned to fear with Indians. This fear, lack of understanding, and the failure to compromise were not unusual. They strongly influenced the European settler relations with Native Americans in all areas of the new countries. This Making of a Nation program was written and produced by Paul Thompson.